I'm attorney Michael Ehline. By the way, I'm trying out a new product called Smoky Mountain Tobacco Free Nicotine. I got this idea from Joe Rogan. I guess nicotine kills some of this mRNA toxic shit that they're putting in our stuff. And I'm also trying some nootropics and some other stuff. And I'm headed to the gym because my son overslept, so there's no church today. So I'm going to go try and work out. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit about carry laws in California. What's going on, Stu? Good seeing you. So we'll get into some carry law stuff and we'll talk to you about what's going on in California. Now we know that we've had a lot of luck. Thankfully, we've had some pretty good conservative pro-American justices help us uh, basically respect the original meaning of what the Second Amendment stands for, which is that we, the people, have just as much right to keep and bear bearable arms and carry them as any government employee does that works for the government law enforcement agencies. We have the same right to keep and bear arms as anyone else. If we're an American citizen and we know the law and mean to keep it well, and we keep our weapons in good order, and that's what well regulated means. Well regulated doesn't mean controlled by the Democrat Party. Well regulated means well trained. That's what regulated meant at the time of the forming of our Constitution and Bill of Rights. It has nothing to do with the modern academic version of well regulated, which we know what they want is total control over every aspect of our lives, right? That's what the Orwellian university and public school system wants. So let's just leave it that at that. Good seeing you guys, Tiffany. Hoorah, good seeing you. So sticky wicked thoughts. So I'm headed to the gym again. This is going to be day number two at the gym for me, and we're gonna we're gonna do a little we're gonna do some chest today. Yesterday I was doing just a really light leg workout. As you guys know, my back is screwed up, so I'm trying my best to get back into some kind of a semblance of decent shape. And in any event, I thought, I'll kill two birds with one stone again. Let's let's go ahead and talk about something that a lot of you guys have been bugging me about, which is, what do you do if you live in CommunistFornia and you want to be able to defend your wife and kids from the 20 million illegal alien invaders that were invited in here by Joe Biden, and you want to be able to protect your family? What are you going to do? And so I'm going to tell you, what you can do. Flee California as fast as you can. That's what you can do. But no, seriously, if you're forced to stay there because you can't afford to move because gas and taxes are so high, you've been forced out of the ability to be able to move, you've got to know what the law is. And so we've had a lot of luck. We've had, the Bruin decision and some other decisions that have come down have dramatically helped us with respect to our ability to keep and bear arms. And the issue is the California legislature is run by a bunch of radical Marxists, many people believe, and so they're doing everything they can to prevent you from being able to do that. And of course, we have George Soros prosecutors that even if you are in compliance with the law, their political ideology prevents them from wanting you to be able to keep and bear arms or protect and defend your family. They're more like Canadians, where they think that, oh my God, you have a gun, you're evil, you should automatically go to prison. They think everything's murder, even self-defense, right? Even if you defend yourself, these radical Marxist lefties, a lot of them who are now judges in the United States, believe politically that, oh, well, we have to respect life. It's better for you to give up your life, give up your property, give up whatever to these illegal alien invaders and anyone else who comes after you, because after all, you don't have a right to property anyways. Only the state does, right? And they got their cushy government jobs, and they got their cushy private security in the form of the FBI, ATF, armed IRS, so they're protected. So, why care about us? All we are is, to them, serfs, just like it was under the British, right, guys? So, anyways, we're going to talk a little bit about. So, I'm licensed to practice law in California and Texas, and I am a Second Amendment rights advocate as well as a natural law advocate. So, we're going to talk about the evolution of what happened in California. So, back in the old days, California respected the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And the Second Amendment is just as important as any other right, including the right of free speech, the right to petition the government for redress, for example. And a lot of people say if the First Amendment fails, you always have the Second. And of course, the original basis, the idea of the Second Amendment was that all males 16 and over are automatically members of what's called the irregular militia. Now, there were also regulars, which were like the Continentals, who would be activated in time of war to serve on behalf of the state, like a state run or state organized militia. And they're absolutely nothing like the National Guard, because the National Guard can be federalized. Each state is sovereign, and each state's citizens have the right to keep and bear arms. Hey, right on, BZ Watchdog. Thanks, bro. And by the way, I'm not looking at the screen too much because I'm driving, but I appreciate the memberships, brother. So, anyways, so all males 16 and over automatically considered to be militia. Had nothing to do with an organized military. In fact, our founding fathers detested the idea of a standing army, so much so that in order for us to have a standing army in this country, every 2 years it has to be reauthorized by Congress. A lot of people don't get that. Our founding fathers modeled closely our idea of a standing military on the Romans. Like, no Roman army was allowed to cross the Tiber. So when you see decisions in dicta and dissent by like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, one of our radical Marxist communist Supreme Court justices, who was appointed by Slick Willie, you'll see that she tries to constantly compare our irregular, our National Guards and army to the militia, and tries to say, well, it really means the government, when the whole concept was the King of England tried to seize our powder houses, our gunpowder, and that's the main reason the colonists went to war against the king, is because the king tried to disarm us. And a lot of people don't know that because they don't teach you that in the government-run schools, unfortunately. So that's just a short, brief history of the history of the Second Amendment and how it came to be in the United States. Anything some Marxist college professor or public school teacher tells you that's different is absolute historical revisionism, and it's to be immediately and instantly flushed down the toilet with 99% of their other crazy ideas, like flooding the country with 20 million illegal alien criminals, many of whom were released from prisons directly into our country, and now shacking up with judges in New Mexico, and now being released out the back door by federal judges in other states, so they can basically commit treason and violate our laws and harbor fugitives while they pretend to be judges in black robes. So let's get into the history now of what's going on in California. So California, just when I was growing up, I had a AKMS clone. I think it was a Norinco, which is basically an AK-47 that fires in semi-automatic. Had the original barrel, not the Obama barrels. Remember, Obama said that if you're going to import parts kits from Russia or China, you have to saw the original barrel in half. So all the parts kits now, you have to have like American barrels, which are trash. So I had the original AKMS clone, and I had an AR-15A2 H-bar. And so when I was a kid, when I was like 16 years old, I was driving to the gun range and going to South Coast Gun Club in Irvine, and almost all the dudes that trained there were Marines, because we had El Toro, and I was trained by a couple of PMIs, primary marksmanship instructors. So before I went into the Marine Corps, I was already an expert, and I graduated as an expert. I think I was like number 2 or number 3 in the company. And that's why I think I got third fire team leader, is because of my great shooting. But obviously, because I'm a short guy and I had to run to catch up with the rest of the unit, I couldn't be the first, second, or third squad leader, but at least I got a fire team. So that's just a little history of my background, training, knowledge, and skill when it comes to the use of defensive firearms. And so, in any event, the state of California, as they flooded the country with illegal aliens and gave them sanctuary, they were able to turn the state blue using the United States Census. And by flooding the state with illegal aliens, that gave them the ability to create more Democrat blue districts without a vote being cast. So that's how the US Census works. It's based on bodies, and unfortunately, the courts, leftist courts, have allowed them to be counted in the census. And the more bodies you have, the more representation that area gets. And so California, without a vote being cast, was able to create many, many, many more blue districts. And that's how they were able to wrestle control of California using illegal aliens. And so as a result, what's the first thing Democrats want to do? We'll take away your right or severely restrict your right to keep and bear firearms. And so over time, they called standard semi-automatic centerfire rifles assault rifles. That was that was the big thing. And now, by the way, excuse me, an assault rifle is a military term, and it means a weapon that can fire full auto or 3-round burst. But the Democrats decided that anything that looks like a military rifle is an assault rifle. So they passed a law called Roberti Rus. And Roberti Rus said any weapon that's under this name, like if it's a Colt or if it's a Smith and Wesson or whatever, that were in existence when I was a kid training with firearms, is now an assault weapon, and it has to be a registered assault weapon. So you have to pay a fee. It has to be carried in a locked container. The magazines have to be registered. All this stuff, and any other, and if you want to keep it, you have to saw off the bayonet lug so it doesn't look as military. You can't have a flash hider. Now you got to put a comp on it. You have to weld the magazine into the mag well, and you can only add ammunition through the feeding by breaking the upper and lower receiver and feeding it from the top. Just crazy stuff to make it ineffective as a firearm, because that's what they want to do. That's their goal. They want to make it just like Canada or Australia. They want to abominate our right to keep and bear arms. So that was one of the first steps, and then they passed this other thing about a drop test. Any new handguns that come in they have to pass a drop test. And so in other words, if you drop the firearm from like 10 feet, it can't go off. And so even though they already do that at the manufacturer, California had this thing called the drop test. Couldn't pass the drop test. The manufacturer would have to pay an additional $300-400 per weapon to have it brought into California. That's why you can't get a Gen 4 Glock in California, right? Unless it's a firearms sale, right, from law enforcement. Other than that, it's got to be a used one. But any new stuff, it's that you're restricted to older technology firearms. That's another way they wanted to destroy your right to defend your family. Then they got rid of, I think under Pete Wilson, I don't really consider him to be much better than a commie-crat, but a rhino, Republican in name only, got rid of, I believe it was Pete Wilson, or it could have been Duke Majan, another commie, went ahead and got rid of your ability to open carry. So your only option was to conceal carry in California. And so that was a problem, because the only way you could get a concealed carry permit is if you were friends with a powerful politician. You had to be friends with a powerful politician. So basically, the only people who were getting concealed carry permits were Democrats. Talk about ironic, right? Or very wealthy, Hollywood actors, other than in San Bernardino, because they had this law called may issue, right, or issue for cause. So if you had any contacts with law enforcement, even if it was you called 911, that could be used as an independent basis to deny you from your right to have a concealed carry permit. So in effect, in California, your right to keep and bear arms was eliminated. Now, what about your car? What if you want to have a firearm in your car? Well, first of all, you can't carry one in your backpack when you walk around unless you can prove that you're carrying it to and from a firearms place to get your firearm work done. That's about it. Other than that, you can't have it, or to carry it to your car. but it can't. So you understand. But if you're going to be carrying it into your car in a backpack, it has to be in a locked container. So that's the way CommunistFornia did it. It has to be in a locked container. So, and you cannot have a magazine in the magwell. So let's say you're attacked by a bunch of radical Hamas supporters or these BLM guys on the freeway who want to stomp your head in because you're the wrong skin color and you have a firearm in your car. Well, you've got to be able to pull your locked container out from under your seat or wherever you have it in your car, unlock it, and then you've got to be able to put the magazine into the magwell, rack the slide, assuming it's not a revolver, and then hopefully you'll have enough time to react and put some rounds down range. Now, for most people who aren't as well trained as I am, they're going to be so stressed out and their heart's going to be pumping so bad, they're going to be dead by the time they're able to do that. And so, in a nutshell, that is California's firearms laws. And of course, even if you do use a firearm in self defense, if you get a left wing George Soros prosecutor, even if you can prove it was self defense, you'll be accused of being a racist, bigot, and homophobe, and you'll get charged and you'll end up spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in defense fees. And ultimately, the only way you're going to win that case probably is on appeal because they'll get a California jury who's been trained since their youth that firearms are evil and anyone who uses one is a racist, bigot, and a homophobe. And that's what a lot of people believe. That's what I've been told by many of my friends who have fled California. And so, by the way, guys, I'm going to go work out here in a second, but I just wanted to share a short history of the firearms laws in California. So now you have an understanding as to why somebody like me could never stay in California. Now, the upside is we do have freedom fighters like Alan Beck who are helping us with these firearms laws, and there is a lot of hope on the horizon for shell issue concealed carry permits. So shell issue simply means that unless you have some kind of a violent felony that prevents you from keeping and bearing arms, no longer can their political allies, the left's political allies at the sheriff's department, prevent you from keeping and bearing a firearm. So hopefully you guys like that. Now, let me see here. Dr. Donna, good seeing you. Tiffany Degley, good seeing you. Yeah, so Tiffany says open carry should be fed all 50 states. Well, right, and that's the thing. See, marriage has to be respected across state lines, and that's not a constitutional right. But the Second Amendment is. So the only reason it's not is because of left wing judges, and that's why people like me can never vote for a leftist. And even though I don't like the Republicans, at least I know there's some decent Republican judges who have voted in favor of the Second Amendment. And many people consider me to be a single issue voter. And that's fine. Call me what you want. I think less government means more freedom. Now, it definitely, Kurt Bronson, it cannot be in plain view. If you have a firearm in your car in California in plain view, you're going to get ventilated real quick. So, yeah, it has to be in a locked container. The magazine has to be separated from the magwell. And some cops are so freaking retarded in California that they literally think that you cannot have any rounds in the magazine. So this is how stupid California is. There's LEO over there. A lot of them think, well, he's got to put the rounds in the magazine and then pop it into the magwell, then rack the slide. Do you guys really think when seconds count, the police are 15 minutes away? When seconds count, a perpetrator could be bashing your windshield in with a baseball bat. And you're gonna be able to think, especially a woman, right, with kids in the car, you think that she's gonna be able to react, get rounds in a freaking magazine and break her nail or something, right? They don't have the thumb strength that men do, and they probably don't have the range time to know how to pop them in there quick and still get a mag in there and seat it properly, seat that magazine right and rack the slide and get around in the chamber. I would say the chances are like hardly at all. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe a 2 that a female is going to be able to do that. So as a result, you yeah, you're screwed, man. And that's why I just can't vote for a Democrat. Well, that's one of the many reasons. But come on, guys. I mean, you're so full of this religious, like cult-like ideology that you can't even common sense doesn't play a role. There's no critical thinking in your thought process. So how could I vote for someone like that? So because my job as man, my primary function as a man is to protect my wife and children. And so if you live in California, the best thing that you can do is scoot, get the hell out of there, because until you get rid of all the illegal aliens, right, who are creating blue districts through the census, California will always be a far left Marxist failed state. The only reason it's even successful at all is because of its ports and the tax revenue from people like me who already fled. But once entrepreneurs and people like me leave, there won't be anything left. And that's why their gas prices are so high and people are miserable and living in fear. And it costs $3,000 a month for a shithole apartment where you could buy a house in Texas and pay $2,000 a month for a massive home and be able to carry a firearm. So why would you stay in California if you're a free thinker? If you want to go on welfare, it's a great place to live because you'll be taken care of. You get free health care, everything paid for by people like me who are fleeing. But now Newsom, what, $2-3 billion now that he owes because he's been offering free health care to illegals and offering them sanctuary. Most of the illegals who come here don't come here for work. They were invited here by USAID and non-governmental organizations. They were given free phones, free hotels, free health care, and they're immediately registered to vote at the DMV. They're moved into blue districts so they can split the district. It was all about creating more power and more votes for Democrats because they know their ideas don't work. Putting tampon machines in the men's restroom is not something that sells in America, all right? Maybe in San Francisco, but nowhere else. And so they have to bring in people who are dependent upon the government for free things in order to make that happen. So in any event, and I appreciate you too, Tiffany, and I love you guys. And you're right, Kurt, I do belong in Texas, but uh, look, I still have to practice law, and I've got to go back and forth to do that. So I need to be on the border for now until I can get my Texas practice built up. So if you guys have been in a serious or catastrophic car or motorcycle accident in Texas, that's what I do. I have one of the largest motorcycle accident verdict or settlements in the history of the United States, over $10 million for an Army airborne guy. I primarily represent veterans. I'm an inactive U.S. Marine, and I'm involved in charities for Marines. I have a charity for Marines and military veterans suffering from service-related cancer. My father died from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma from Agent Orange from Vietnam. And yeah, BZ, I can do a show with you. I think what we should do is probably do it tomorrow because I promised a couple of these other guys that I would cover these judges and the Tren de Aragua and the MS-13 stuff where the news media is just making up bullshit, trying to say that like we owe these guys something who snuck into our country, and how these judges are just like nitpicking and picking and choosing what laws they're gonna abide by if it supports their political ideology. So probably have to do it tomorrow, but I definitely do. Guys, give me a bunch of ones for BZ. Um, yeah, Tuesday works. So BZ is trying to do a motion in Texas, and I'm gonna do, since I'm a Texas lawyer and I support BZ because he's a government accountability activist like me, and he's also a Marine. I'm gonna try to help him out and get and sort of like teach you guys how to do emotion and stuff like that from my perspective if you were going pro per. But anyway, so basically we just covered California concealed carry, how it's almost impossible still to get a concealed carry permit unless you live basically in San Bernardino. So if you live in a red area, you could probably get a concealed carry. If you live in a blue area, unless you're a Democrat, a politician, or a Hollywood actor, you probably can't, in a nutshell. So it's all based upon what political club you belong to. So that's right. We owe them nothing. Provide them a careful escort back to their. Absolutely, it's crazy. I mean, look, when I was growing up, the illegals that came here, they were really hard workers, but they weren't invited here by President Joe Biden. They weren't given free cell phones. They weren't given free hotel rooms. They weren't given free health care. They worked their asses off. And those people deserve to be Americans because they earned their place here. But these modern ones that come up here, when I was down in El Salvador last time, we had these Antifa guys recruiting them, walking around with brand new Apple phones, passing them out, giving them maps on how to sneak through our border checkpoints. And those, they worked for nonprofits through Catholic charities and George Soros funded nonprofits to basically sneak into our country and immediately get free hotels, SNAP benefits, and everything else under the sun, and protective status for the purposes of using the United States Census to redistrict the entire country blue. That was the reason for it. It had nothing to do with these people wanting work or a better life. It's because the people from up here were going down there and inviting them to come across. And then they said, oh, we need to pass Joe Biden's special law, and then they'll stop coming. And of course, that special law just allowed more illegals to keep coming across and legalized it. And so what happened? Well, so the first thing that Joe Biden did when he became president is he reversed Trump's executive order that illegal aliens shelter in place and do not get to come across the border. They have to apply for amnesty at the embassy down there, and then they get an opportunity to come across. Well, what did he do? The first act, one of the very first acts of Joe Biden was to reverse that and allow this flood and pay nonprofits to bring them here, which is treason. That is treason. You don't invite illegal aliens into your country with tax funded money. And that's exactly what Joe Biden did. And so within 30 days of Trump becoming president, he had the U.S. military down there. And now we have like virtually zero illegal aliens. And it's going to come out, guys. It's going to come out that people like Hobbs and people in Arizona and New Mexico, these judges, are all on the take from the drug cartels. And they were receiving silver, gold, and their families were receiving trust donated homes and things like that through these cartels. The drug cartels were the ones who profited from this. Billions of dollars because they control the border. So that's what really happened. Don't believe anything you see or hear on Communist News Network or PMS NBC. That's what really happened. And all those people say, oh, we have to pass this law. Oh, we have to do something. Immigration, it's Reagan's fault. It's this guy's. No, all it took was to send our military down there to defend our border. And now we don't have them coming across. So all that bullshit that you guys heard, it was a lie. And hopefully you guys are starting to become critical thinkers and starting to become real Americans. I hope that you guys love your country as much as I do. In any event, and then they were being counted in the census. Well, absolutely. That's how California turned blue with illegals. They used illegal aliens to create more Democrat voting districts. That's exactly what they did. And of course, lefties will say, oh, but they can't vote. Well, sure, they can't vote, but they do. If you don't have voter ID and they're getting registered to vote at the freaking DMV, how are they not voting? And why wouldn't they vote for the party that gives them free everything? Do you think they're going to vote for Republicans who want to send them home and only allow people into the country that actually work or contribute? Look, most illegal aliens that do work up here, they get a fake social security number. They claim 99 dependents. They send most of their earnings back home, and they might use 5 or 6 different names. They make workers' compensation claims like crazy. We're not allowed to ask them about their immigration status. They've got it down. This stuff needs to end, dude. These guys are destroying our country. You guys need to wake the F up. And, Antonio Roma, you're right. Domestic citizens commit crimes. Guess what? Once you get rid of the illegal aliens, you'll have a lot more money to focus on dealing with domestic crime. Great comment. Great comment from the far left commie. All right, guys. Well, with that being said, I am going to go and hit the gym. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Semper Fidelis, do or die, make it happen. Don't ever be lazy. Get your ass out to the gym. Check it out, Aunt Pisano. Rewind it. Get your ass out to the gym. Take care of yourself. Take care of your body. You only have one. Don't inject yourself with toxic stuff. Make sure that you take nicotine to kill graphene and anything else that Big Brother has forced you to take in the interest of public safety, and square yourselves away. And yeah, Powerhouse, brother. Iris Kiley's Powerhouse. 10-time, I think 10-time Miss Olympia. I'm going to try to hit it hard. And by the way, guys, I've been trying these Smoky Mountain, and I'm not being paid to do this. I want you to try them out if you can. My understanding is that nicotine is a way to counteract the effects of autism as well as graphene and a lot of these chemicals that like Bill Gates is trying to inject into our meat. That and quercetin, and I'm sure Dr. Donna's got a lot of other stuff. And yeah, I saw that, Pro say. That was awesome. But guys, again, hey, let's OTVO. Good seeing you, brother. Let's OTVO. I'm going to do a show on Tuesday with BZ about motions and stuff in his case. And good seeing you, man. Yeah, unflavored. That's right. This is unflavored, the stuff that I got. And I'm getting the stuff that doesn't have uh, any of the crap in it. You know what? I just noticed this was the wrong one. So I ordered some other stuff. You're right, Dr. Donna. This has aspartame, so I'm not going to take this anymore. Yeah, you want to get the unflavored stuff with no aspartame, no sucralose, none of that crap, because all you're doing is trading one disease for another, right? But anyways, guys, it was really, really great seeing everybody. I got to hit the gym. It's super, super awesome to see you, and I'll try to go live later and cover these radical Marxist judges who are actually aiding and abetting criminal illegal aliens and trying to compare it to like Anne Frank and the Nazis. Well, first of all, Anne Frank was a German citizen. These illegal aliens, or a lot of them, were released from prisons and flooded into our country by our enemies, like the president of Venezuela. And this New Mexico judge actually had photographs of one of these guys. I guess him and his wife were swinging with, right? Of decapitated heads on this guy's phone, and the judge deleted those. So destruction of evidence. Hardcore Democrat judge wants to flood the country with illegals, of course. And so that's what we're dealing with: aiding and abetting enemies of the republic uh, for power and not putting the interests of the American people first. So, anyways, guys, I'll talk to you soon. Semper Fi, do or die.